Today we are going behind the brand with Stefan Clauss of Heimplanet. We are going to be looking at the history, the early days of Heimplanet and how they got started. We'll be also looking at the future and what that holds for Heimplanet. We're going to be taking a deep dive into brand and what brand means to them, what role it plays within the business. And we're going to be getting some golden nuggets of information, some wise words from the man himself on how to build a business and use brand to empower you. So for any of you budding entrepreneurs out there, I think this is going to be a great insight. So without further ado, let's jump straight in. What's good, everybody, and welcome back to Hyperfocus. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Stefan Clauss from Heimplanet.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
A warm welcome to you. It's really great to have you here at the studio. And today we're doing a little bit of a special. We're taking a deep dive behind the brand. And Stefan has agreed to come and join us and talk a little bit about, or take a deep dive into Heimplanet. So, without further ado, let's jump straight in, shall we? So my first question to you is, well, it's more of a request, really. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, who you are and why you're here?
I'm Stefan, as you explained. I'm one of two founders of Heimplanet. We're actually two Stefans. Mm-hmm. Very easy to remember. And I'm, as I said, one of two founders. We started the brand in 2010. Actually, the idea was born during a surf trip in 2003.
Okay.
And me and my best mate, basically, back then, we decided to fulfill one of our dreams.
Nice. Which was? To build a business?
We always kind of were playing with the idea to one day start a business. So we were always playing and just exchanging ideas. We could do this, we could do that. And I personally was working as a brand consultant back then.
Okay.
And for me, there was something really, I was always attracted by brands.
Yeah.
And what they symbolize to me personally. And so the idea of building something from scratch and building something for yourself, by yourself, was always very, exciting. Something that was always a dream in a way. But actually, when we started, it wasn't a brand idea at all.
Okay. It
was a product idea, first and simple.
So, I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, I know Heimplanet, you know Heimplanet. Maybe there's some people who are kind of tuning in for the first time who don't really know the essence of Heimplanet. What is, I know you talked about a product, but what is like Heimplanet at the core? What do you do, basically?
So basically, nowadays, we are an outdoor brand.
Okay.
That's what we are, that's what we do, that's what we trying to achieve, basically. But when we started, as I mentioned, it was basically a product idea.
Yeah.
Stefan and I, we were on a surf trip back then, and we were using a tent, and we were kind of moving from beach to beach every day, and we set up the tent, took it down, and while using it, we started chatting about it, and we were it was not a serious conversation. It was we were just chit-chatting and we were making fun that it was 2003 and we were still putting poles together, bending bolts and to make them form a tent. And we thought that's kind of ridiculous. I'm personally very disappointed that there are no flying cars. I expected by now they should be everywhere.
They're on the way, so I hear.
Yes, there are rumors, but I don't trust it. It's like I got too disappointed too often. But it was kind of this kind of conversation that we were having, and the idea was like, okay, what would the tent of the future? What would it look like? And yeah, that was just a holiday conversation. And then jumping forward to 2008, we were both in jobs. We were kind of disappointed with the situation. We were unhappy with the situation that we both were in. And so we picked up again our game of exchanging ideas.
Yeah.
What could we do? How could we start our own business? And the idea of doing something together and doing something on our own was there actually before the idea was there. As I mentioned, we had this idea at some point, but we forgot about it. And then Stefan, he brought it up in one conversation. And first I was like, what are you talking about? But the more I got into it, the more exciting it got. And then I approached this as I approached any kind of job that I did up until to this point.
Mm-hmm.
As a brand consultant, I dived into research. What is the market looking like? What is there? What is interesting? What's the price range? What kind of target groups do you have there? And what kind of brands do you have within that context? And the more I digged into it, and the further I went down the rabbit hole, the more interesting it got, because it was really boring what I found. There was nothing exciting. There was nothing that talked to me. There was nothing that sparked my interest.
Yeah.
And I initially thought that's a great opportunity, because we were, if you would have asked us back then, are you too, would you consider yourself being outdoor people? I would have laughed at you. No way, I'm not an outdoor person.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? But in reality, we were. We were doing all these activities, but we didn't connect with it in a cultural context, in a what you would call a brand relevant context. So all these brands, they didn't talk to us. We never felt addressed by them. And this was the opportunity that we saw back then. Because if we feel this way, there must be a lot
of other people feeling the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that was kind of the kickoff.
Cool. I mean, what's the time gap here? You know, you said it was 2003, 2004. You guys had the chat, and then when did you actually start to actually really start to make this thing become a reality?
It was in the end of 2008 when we picked up the conversation again. But there was a general conversation about founding a business in general. Then we picked up the idea again. We started diving into it, and then it was actually New Year's Eve, 2008, 2009, that we decided, okay, we take this serious.
Okay.
So we're gonna explore it.
Yeah.
And that's when we looked for fundings, we looked for what's necessary to set up a business, and what do we have to do, what kind of connections do we need, what kind of tasks do we actually have to work on, what kind of problems do we have to solve, what questions do we have to answer. So that was around the beginning of 2009. We received the funding to build the first prototype. And in 2011, we actually founded the company in the beginning of 2010. And in the beginning of 2011, we presented the first product, which was an inflatable tent.
Okay, cool. Nice. I mean, for me as well, from my humble perspectives, I think you do an amazing job with design.
Thanks
you very much stand out in the marketplace. You're very much for the style conscious, I think, and the people that you were talking about not talking to, which was yourself and that crew of people. You really hit the nail on the head. But how did you get there? From your perspective, how did design become? Because from what I see, it's very much at the forefront of what you do. How does design play a role and brand in the products that you create? So within our business, in the beginning we were a two-man show. Yeah.
And it was like in a really cheesy movie. We took out a paper, we wrote down all the tasks, all the kind of issues that we have to deal with. and then we separated them accordingly to what we thought would be our expertise, or who would be suited better for solving a certain issue. And everything brand, marketing, and sales related kind of was fell into my lap. So I would say the influence there was a little bit bigger from my side.
Yeah.
And for me personally, I grew up in a culture of skateboarding. I'm a kid of the 80s, 90s, so skateboarding and all around that was the world I lived in.
Yeah.
And to me, skateboarding was all about creativity on so many different levels, and graphics and kind of design was a big part of it. And I always was really attracted by good design.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've learned. It's not something that I would say I'm very knowledgeable about. But it was something that naturally attracted me.
Yeah.
And it made me just feel good about things and using them, or there were things that repelled me. And so for me, it was kind of a natural approach. And the experience with skateboarding was something that really spoke to me when it came to brand design, because I was always very irritated by the fact that you had European or German brands, and they usually appeared to be kind of like crappy.
Yeah.
They always looked. They didn't appear to be very professional when it came to design. But everything that came from abroad, from the US, was refined, very stylish, very thought through. Later on, it's kind of obvious. Yes, the things that make it over the ocean and come to Europe, they've proven themselves. So it's kind of natural that it happens. But for me, it was always the idea was I never want to look like a German brand. So that was a driving point, because it was like kind of like these things. A lot of them, they kind of looked whack, I was afraid. It was really it was something that I personally was afraid about, that we would be seen as a German brand.
Okay.
I personally wanted that right from the beginning. It appears to be professional, thought through, considered in a way. So, and with my branding background, I have the tendency to apply all this thinking of brand building or brand, the concept of brand, to execute it in all aspects of the business. Yeah. So I actually become a bit of a pain, or actually a big pain, to the people we work with, and probably also my partner. But it's just something that I can't explain it. It's just.
But I think it's also, from what I can see, it's very much in the nature of the product itself, right? It's adventurous exploration. It's looking past what you know. It's being, I suppose, a little bit out of your comfort zone to actually go and be an adventurer. And I think that kind of scope of where you're going, quite possibly, or talking from a tone of voice, from a brand perspective, also reflects that. Yeah,
and that, now that you mention it, we kind of had exactly the same experience on the product level that I just described on a brand level.
Yeah.
So we were really afraid. We did something that nobody did before.
Yeah.
So an inflatable tent for everyone was something that wasn't really done before, and so we were really afraid with the new technology in a market that is highly focused on functionality and quality, durability, everything that is kind of challenging from a product perspective, and you have to check all these boxes. Otherwise, you're not taken seriously, for good reason. Because if you go into if it's not about just going camping on a campground, if you go into the wild, so to speak, you really have to rely on the product. You have to rely on the quality and the functionality of the product.
Yeah.
So a lot of these brands, when we started talking about design and branding and so on, they were like, what are you talking about? It's like, this product has to make sure that you survive. That's their thinking, that's their background. But we were kind of, we were in a very luxurious position. We were kind of like the second generation brand, or third generation, whatever you want to call it. So all these things, all these factors, they were available to us. But we were highly sensitive to these topics. And we wanted to make sure that there's no little point of criticism that we give to people.
I think that's very bold and brave as well. And I think that stands a testament. You see that in the products that you're creating as well. And it just kind of plays a little bit in my head as well, what you're saying is, because anytime I'm talking with a German colleague of mine, and I kind of talk about these kind of things, especially when we're talking about the outdoors, I always hear the word ganz praktisch.
Yeah.
And that's at the forefront of their decision making. And it's like form follows function, etc., etc. But I think you need to be able to, as you are doing, like break out of that mold and be very brave and attract and open up that conversation that say, hey, we have something that's different. We allow you in to a world that you're going to love being a part of, which is your brand. But we also do really great stuff as well, you know. So people fall in love with what you're doing, and you make great products.
Yeah, I believe. First of all, I think every product has to make sense somehow, and what that is that you call sense for a particular product is up to the product. It's up to you and so on, but it has to make sense, and it has to fulfill one kind of function.
Yeah.
And functionality, as I explained, in an outdoor world, becomes something that easily becomes very serious. Because if you have a tent and it's not waterproof, it's just useless.
Yeah.
It's not like a T-shirt that if it doesn't fit perfectly, you wouldn't throw that away necessarily. Mm-hmm. But if a tent is not waterproof, there's no use for it. And this makes everything, you could say a little bit more serious. Mm-hmm. You have to really pay attention to detail. And for us, we were with this new idea, we kind of were panicking that people would see the product just as a gadget, just as something that we were for the fun of it, mm-hmm. you know. But we wanted to be taken seriously, and we wanted to that people take the product seriously, and we didn't want to. We were afraid to become just gadgety, one-hit wonder, just for the effect.
Yeah.
And we didn't want that. We wanted to create some substance.
So that actually leads really nicely on to the next question, which is about how your brand has evolved. Obviously, when you started, you had the blow-up tent. You had a particular look around the brand. That was in 2008. When was it? Did you say 2000?
2010, 2011. That's when we launched.
And now 2021. Obviously, you've got more products. You've grown exponentially. You offer different things. How has the brand evolved over time from when you launched the first product to today?
A good question. It's not necessarily that you could say it evolved. The initial idea was there right from the beginning. So as I said, we wanted to build a product that, if you like the fact that it's inflatable or not, if you like the design or if you hate it, you have to state that it's a good product. So that was the first, and out of that experience and out of talking to people in the outdoor world, mm-hmm. this was what we put first. So the product has to work, and the product itself has to make sense. So, and everything else then is where we can start to play, in a way. Like I said, we are the second, third generation of outdoor brands, mm-hmm. If you want to look at it, and most of the functional aspects, Gore-Tex and all these, waterproofing, shell technologies, all these things, they were developed. And it is something that we benefit from. So we can focus on kind of making it fun.
Okay.
Making it, pushing it to the next level. So in the beginning, the approach was, as I said, building a brand for people like us. Finding a new way of looking at outdoors, the outdoors world, looking at nature, maybe even. The initial idea was, and it all comes together in the name. That was the initial inspiration led to the name, and that is still true up to today, and it will ever be for the brand.
So what does actually Heim? I mean, for all the people out there who don't speak German, what is actually Heimplanet or Heimplanet? What's the meaning behind the actual name itself?
So the translation of planet Earth would be Heimatplanet, and the word Heimat is a very if you translate it directly, it means home. So you could say home planet, as you would say in English for the planet, planet Earth. But the word Heimat has a very special meaning, and just to translate it with home it doesn't really describe what it means in German. It means more the place where you either come from or where you have really deep connections to, where your roots might be. It's a place that is very emotional, that you know the smell of the surroundings and it touches you, and that's Heimat. And the idea was that we take a bit of this feeling while you're traveling into the unknown.
Cool.
And
really nice.
And so the short version of Heimat is your Heim, which is your actual home, where you have your bed, where you have your living room and your kitchen.
Sure.
So
cool. A place where you belong somehow.
Exactly.
That you come back to.
You feel comfortable. You feel safe.
Yeah.
And the idea was to create a safe space in an unknown environment.
Yeah.
And so that was the initial idea. But the idea was really, we were fascinated by traveling. And Stefan and I, we traveled together. We went to places like Costa Rica. He went to South America, Brazil, and so on. I also studied abroad. I lived for some time in the UK. And all these experiences, when we talked about them and what they mean to us, it was always that they were kind of life-changing experiences, because you learn a lot about yourself, but you learn something about a new culture as well. And it's a very defining moment, because you learn you compare your background and your culture always to what you're confronted with. So you learn a lot about what of your own culture actually means something to you, what is important and what is not. And what do you like about a different culture and what maybe not. And if you're open for this, it's an amazing experience. And this embracing something new is the greatest inspiration.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? I think like you don't realize that you're a foreigner until you leave your safe space.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I experience that all the time. I realize what it is to be British, and I didn't know what it was to be British when I was in my little bubble living back in England.
Yeah.
And that surprises me, some of the things that I've brought with me on my travels and living somewhere else.
And I'm sure there are things that you're proud of that you never considered before. And there are other things that you think like, oh my God, that's stupid. Why do we do it?
Yeah. Yeah, makes
and
no
vice
sense.
versa. So, and this is it's not just an eye-opening. You could say it sounds a bit esoterical, but it's a mind-opening experience.
Yeah.
And so, and you can get, and I'm sure world travelers they kind of get addicted to it. So, and for us, that was that was an inspirational moment, and we thought this kind of inspiration has a lot of energy to build a brand around.
Yeah.
So taking this experience, it led to the name. Then the product, it all together started to
come to life somehow.
Yes,
it all
come
kind
to
of
life.
Made sense.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
started to make sense, and slowly there was a brand growing out of it, and so basically, in technical terms, you could say like, the idea was we wanted to create a very technical but lifestyle-oriented outdoor brand.
Yeah. I mean, everything that you're talking about just sounds it sounds fantastic. It's all kind of wrapped up in culture somehow. It's a culture that you've been living and breathing for the last however many years and through all the experiences that you've been on. And this leads me to my next question, which is how do you translate those thoughts, the culture that you've lived and breathed at Heimplanet, you know, with your employees, with the people that you're working with? How do you express what you stand for through brand and through communication at work?
That was actually a bit of a challenge because once you have something like in the beginning it's not even a brand idea, it's more of a feeling.
Yeah.
And you're trying to express it. The moment, the first time that you work with someone around the brand, for the brand, is the first time that you have to kind of express your feelings and put them to paper, maybe.
Yeah.
And even though I worked as a brand consultant, if it's your own brand, it becomes difficult.
Yeah, for
because you love every bit and every detail of it. But to be able to make it clear and for someone else to understand in a way that they can start working with it, you have to cut it down and you have to distill it.
Yeah.
And you have to come to the essentials of what your brand defines. And it was a long process, and it was helpful to talk with others who have brand knowledge, and make them challenge you and ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
And it's an ongoing process. It's something that we still do. It's something that and there are always new aspects. It's a very complex construction, a brand. But at the same time, it has to be, it has to have some simplicity to it to make it work, I believe.
Yeah.
And so it is something. It's a ongoing dialogue that we have with the people that we work with, the people within the company, people outside the company, and you see the bigger it becomes, the larger it is, the more people who get involved, the more precise you have to be on defining who you are, what you want to represent, and what defines you, because it is so easy to just lose track.
Yeah.
When you have more people involved, they have maybe a little bit of a different opinion, they have different tastes, different opinions. And so, and it's natural that they want to bring in some of their knowledge, their experience. But when you want to build a brand, you just have to make sure that it is consistent across all channels. And I'm not just talking about like communication, I'm talking about everything, products, the way, even your language, all these small little bits and pieces. And yeah, so it's an ongoing process, and we're still learning, and I think it will never stop.
What's the actual, just out of interest, what's the company language that you speak? Do you have people from different places working with you?
I would say it's mainly German, but
Okay.
We have a lot of partners, and we have once in a while there's someone who speaks English, or a different language, different first language, and then we switched to English. I would say we are pretty comfortable speaking in English, but yeah, mainly naturally. We're based out of Hamburg, so
Sure. I
we
just think sometimes it's very beautiful as well, especially with the travels and everything. Just have this kind of multicultural input, which I'm sure all of your guys bring from their travel experiences and also from talking with the community as well. Definitely helps to hear those voices from different places.
Yeah, but we have right from the beginning. For example, when we launched the product in 2011, we actually launched on our website. We did something like a pre-order kind of setup. And right from that moment on, we decided to do it internationally. Also there, we thought like nowadays, and even back in 2010, it is kind of natural that if you can see a product and you're interested, it would be for a regular person, for a regular customer, it's not really. It doesn't make sense if it's not available to them. So to say like, oh yeah, just because you live in Japan, no, our product is not available because we're not going to ship to Japan. That's nonsense. Yeah. So right from the beginning, we tried to make sure, even though then maybe the shipping was fairly expensive, but we wanted to make sure if there is someone who finds the product and he likes it, he wants it, we're going to make sure he will get it. So being open to an international audience was something that came natural to us. Yeah. And therefore now we have international partners we have a distribution in Norway, we have partners in Taiwan, Japan, Korea, and so on. And they bring in their influences. Yeah. And then you see all of a sudden, I never would have expected that Japan is one of the most developed camping cultures around the globe, and actually it's extremely inspiring, and it's amazing. I never thought that they have such a culture.
The Japanese seem to take things and embrace them to the extreme and really live out those different cultures, which is incredible to see. I mean, this is it's super cool, man. Like where you've come from. I mean, from two guys on a beach having a chat about. Was it on a beach? On a beach, yeah. Talking about this idea to today in 2021, and I'd really like to kind of know, as we close 2021, what is your kind of future perspective? What are the plans for Heimplanet moving forward?
So along the way, while we're working on the brand, we came up with a term that, as I said, the idea was to build a tent of the future, and kind of the future perspective being progressive, being challenging to the way we approach topics, products, and communication and culture maybe, is something that became part of who we are, part of our identity. So for us, we defined that we want to represent modern outdoors. Mm-hmm. It's a concept that we are trying to bring all these pieces together, and we want to be a challenge to the market, other brands, and culturally as well. So we went once to a show in Salt Lake City. OR, it's one of the largest outdoor shows around the globe. And there was a guy, a buyer from a large outdoor store, and he looked at our booth, and after we were talking, he was like, "I like you guys. You're kind of punk rock."
Nice, man.
And that was a huge compliment.
Yeah, for sure.
And this kind of being a challenge and doing things differently, and maybe at least we're trying to do them a little bit more creatively.
Yeah.
I think that's what we want to do, and this is what we want to be known for.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a truly inspiring story, and I can feel this from here as well. How you just actually talk about where you've come from. It's an incredible story, and I'm definitely looking forward to see where things go in the future. But I'd just like to just take a little step back, I suppose, in time, and for all those kind of entrepreneurs out there who have an idea, for those for the next generation of friends who are sat on a beach somewhere in the middle of nowhere, drinking a beer and having some crazy thoughts. Do you have kind of any lasting words, kind of any inspiration, if you were able to go back to yourself when you were coming through and give yourself some advice?
I would say be, in a way, strict, and I would say even a bit brutal about judging your own ideas, your own thoughts. But if you believe in it, and you strongly believe in it, and if you're really honest with yourself, and if you're hard on yourself, you will come up with something that will kind of tests this, will stand this test.
Yeah.
Then go for it, and with all consequences. But don't forget about yourself, and making sure that you take care of yourself along the way. Because especially in the beginning, that's something that we didn't really do. And brand and company came always first. And this is something where I sometimes think we could have enjoyed the ride a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think this is very important, because just if you're having fun, if you're enjoying the ride, you will be able to continue and put all your energy into it.
Yeah, I think those are super wise words. I've heard this before as well. It's about the journey, right? It's not the end destination.
No,
and sometimes we forget that.
Yeah. It's never finished.
Yeah.
If you keep being inspired by your own story, you will never reach any destination. So make it last and make it worth the ride.
Fantastic, man. Amazing words, very wise words. Thank you so much. I think that's a great place to end. For taking the time out of probably your very busy schedule to sit here with us and chat Heimplanet. I've learned a lot. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. And I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
And thanks guys for tuning in and spend a little bit of time with the two of us. And as always, we will see you in the next one.
Cheers.
Nice one.
Was okay?
Yeah, man. Thanks very much. It was really, really great. Thank you.